Welcome to Hollow Hearts 101 with Dr. Jacqueline Del Rosario, America's marriage coach. On this episode of Hollow Hearts 101, Dr. Jacquie breaks down what agape love is, and it's the kickoff to our 8-part series that talks about the different aspects of love. Make sure you tap in and stay tuned as she breaks down a lot of myths and misconceptions that we have about unconditional love. And we even break down how it's a foundational block on your new love life with either your loved one, your relationship, or so on and so forth, and how agape love can truly be used, and how the people in the world try to misconstrue agape love into toxic love. So stay tuned. There's a lot of good takeaways in this episode.
I always say that we're all in the pursuit of happiness, but I think that we're really all in the pursuit of love, which leads to us feeling happy. We know that it's a necessary ingredient in anyone's life. Children don't thrive unless they feel loved. People that don't know love, especially all of the different facets of love, they grow up hindered, malformed. And so I really wanted to start this podcast talking about the different types of love. I think I want to cover 8 different types of love. 8 is a large number.
Not today, but the whole.
But we want to talk more specifically about one today. But we have philia, which is affectionate love, pragma, enduring love, storge, familiar love, dealing with family, eros, that's the one that we all love. It's hot and it's steamy, romantic love, ludus, playful love, mania, obsessive love, philusia, self-love. Philadia, rather, is the way we should pronounce that. That's self-love. And then lastly, and the one that we're going to start with, agape love. When I hear about agape, which is this selfless love, people say, you want to love and you don't expect anything in return. Jeff, what do you have to say about that in a society where people are very transactional? I think that mostly we all want something back. We just might not want to specify what it is. We might not want to specify the time, but we are looking for a reciprocal kind of love. We want to love the way we want to love the person, but we at some point in time expect to get something back in response.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jacquie, for that question. Now, as far as reciprocating the love, I think that when you start loving someone else, a lot of times you go into it with some type of expectancy. You love them the way you feel you want to be loved back. And at times, that's not what initially happens. I think that's something that you work on, right? You got to give them expectations. And let them know, hey, I'm loving you, example, unconditionally, but in turn, you're loving me with kind of boundaries, or vice versa. You might go into it loving someone with boundaries, and they're not showing any signs of boundaries when they're loving you.
But this is the thing, agape has no expectation. And, for me, agape is a type of love. It's a mature love, if I had to kind of describe it. And it's something that I've been striving for, because that's the Christ type love. We find out as Christians that we're supposed to love like Jesus loved. Now he's on a cross, they're spitting on him, beating him up and calling him names. And then at the same time, he's saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, because he loves the people so much. He doesn't even want anything set to their account. Now, when I think about that kind of love, the first thing that occurs to me is I'm not there. Because if you're spitting, hitting, beating me, I'm probably not going to look that favorably on you. But as I've gotten older, I've really come to understand agape. Agape to me means the ability to love even when you're hated. The ability to love someone and to want good for them even when they don't want good for you. I've had people that have conspired against me, even done things to undermine. But it's like my old self would want retaliation and would want revenge. But the mature Jacquie still loves them. I just don't want them to do stuff to me. but nothing in me fires off in my mind to ever do anything against them. Nothing in my mind fires off to say, I'm going to withhold my heart from them and I'm not going to love them anymore. I still will. I still do. And so for me, that's been a progressive work. It's been something that has developed in me. It's something that came after I extinguished the retaliatory aspect of wanting revenge, wanting justice, wanting to get back. It's almost like the love itself put out that fire. And so I can understand agape. But to me, when they frame it in the aspect of it being selfish, it's selfless because you love even though the person wants to hurt or they don't like you. You love even though they're trying to harm you, you still are able to love them. And to me, this is the love dance that happens in most relationships. Sometimes people are doing things that are harmful to you. They do things that hurt your feelings. You know, I imagine on a day-by-day basis, I hurt some of my staff's feelings because I'm the boss. And I'm like that. You know, I'm all in it. But think about it. If you are with Eros, it means that you give room for people to be who they are. You give room for them regardless of their circumstances, and you don't count things against them. You're able to see beyond. To me, agape love transcends earthly wisdom. It transcends like, you know, oh, they're trying to harm you. Okay, but I still love them. I can see where they're at. And, you know, I'm still going to speak kindly to them. I'm still going to show them my affection. I think that sometimes, even in the midst of them trying to still harm you, you still have a love. Does that mean you don't arm yourself and take care of yourself? No, of course you do that. But you still at the center of it all in your heart, you still feel a love towards them. Do you think that you've ever felt that towards anyone, Xavier or Jeffrey?
I can only say I felt that maybe with my family. And when I say my family, my brothers and maybe my mom, my dad. Mm-hmm. But for like me, someone out externally, no, most of my love comes with conditions. It comes with parameters. It comes with things that I need to do in order to protect myself and my soul and my being. Yeah. And so as a result of that, for me to give you unconditional love, love without barriers, love that goes beyond a certain level of human logic, it makes no logical sense for you to cut me and for me to love you. But that's what that's demanding. And have I ever had that love? I can't say I have. I mean, my parents and my brothers, but that's a different type of love to a certain degree. I mean, with my relationship with God, because Lord knows I've been cutting him and he's been still welcoming me back into the fold. But for real, from me as a human being, to give that to somebody else.
But why do you think we don't want to give it to somebody else? Is it that we're afraid? Is it that we don't want to be that vulnerable? Is it that we have a sense of injustice? Like, why did they get to do that to me and they don't get, nothing happens bad to them? I mean, what do you think are the layers that we need to pull back that are related to why it's so difficult for us?
To Xavier's point, I agree with him for most of what he said. For my personal aspect, for me, I experienced that in a tough time with my mother, per se, where it was a matter of me always questioning why she didn't love me the way a mother should love her child. And it took me to a place of, as I got older and became an adult, I realized that you hurt me so much, me being a child and me not doing anything wrong to you, for you to feel any type of way towards me, and maybe not out of choice, maybe out of personal issues that she might have been going through at that time. It put me in a place on kind of like questioning, do I continue to love someone that hurt me so much? But in a mother's perspective, it was like I found a replacement, per se, which was my grandmother. But as I got older, I understood that at the end of the day, no one can replace my mother. So I had to find it within myself to say, Example, I need to provide this lady with all the love that I have and put aside all the hurt and pain that she caused me. So I sit here today on this podcast to say, yes, I believe that I've been able to provide that agape love that you're speaking about, because on a day in, day out basis, I question a lot of times, why do I love someone that hurt me so much? And I love this person unconditionally. You know, even though at important times in my life when you needed that mother figure, or I was in turmoil with my own self, you know, doubting certain decisions that I feel like if a mother figure was there for me, might have been easier to make certain decisions.
Right.
So, from my personal
so you felt like you felt it. You felt
correct.
like
I felt it. And then
But I want to make a separation though, Jeff. I think that this is one of the things that trips people up about agape, especially when it's about someone that has hurt you or done something bad to you. I think that we're attaching that to this visual image of us still continuing in a relationship with that person. I don't think that agape means that you have to be in a day-to-day relationship with a person or even a distant relationship with a person. I think that you can love people, but that doesn't mean you have to embrace them. So I'm going to say it this way. I believe that you can have a spiritual separation from someone without them being spatially, physically separated from you.
Hello, everyone. And on Hollow Hearts 101, one thing that we do different from other podcasts is that we take the time for you to digest and to understand what is being said. Dr. Jacquie just said something that a lot of people haven't really thought about. To have spiritual separation from someone and also have spatial separation from someone. Do you believe that you could demonstrate agape love that way? Why or why not? Secondly, when it comes down to someone who has hurt you, do you hold on to that hate and pain that they've caused? Or do you release it and try to love them again? Are you capable of agape love? And think about why you are, why you aren't, and the steps that you're trying to take to get there.
Let me give you an example. Your mom can be living in the same city from you, 30 minutes from your door. You can see her at family reunions and family gatherings, and you can embrace her there and say, "Hey, Mom," but that doesn't mean that you got to go by her house over the weekend to have dinner. Doesn't mean that you go watch the game over her place or that you have a lot of intimate time together. But your ability to love her and really love her when you see her is important. But some relationships are they're a little toxic. So maybe your mother, I'm sure she did the best that she could, but maybe the best that she could do was not sufficient for you, and it creates harm. It creates continued hurt. So we got you healing from the hurt that she put you through when you were younger. But if that wound is continually being reopened every time you're around her, that's a toxic relationship. Listen to me, listeners. That means that relationship is not working for your good. You do not have to have constant connection and contact with relationships that are not good for you. But it doesn't mean that you can't still love them with agape. And I mean, it really mean good for them, really wish them well, really embrace them in love. But you got to create that distance, because that's not someone that you're really meant to collaborate with, to live with, to join yourself with. But nonetheless, you love them. I think that this is really an important lesson. If I had to say what was one of the most important lessons that I learned, and it was the wisdom to know the difference between what relationships, who I needed to receive. And to me, to receive someone means that you can open your heart to them and you can love them. But then who I needed to connect myself with. Connecting to me is different. It's more intimate. It's spending time with the people, doing activities with the people. And I have different levels of that type of connection. Some I connect with over the phone. I might meet them in a business setting only. But then there's a deeper connection now when I'm talking about people that know where I live and they actually come to my house. Very few people do that. Hardly no one knows where I live. Why? Because that for me is my inner sanctum. So once you come there, that means that I consider you like family. You are like really a part of me. Because basically, I've never in my life really connected people with that many people on that level. So outside of that, I can still have agape. I can really love them. But usually when it comes to that part of the inner sanctum of my life, it requires a mutual level of respect, a mutual level of trust. And I have to know that that's a relationship that can work for me in a non-professional, but more in a personal way. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So how does one earn agape love? How does one get to agape love? How is that even, what is the first steps to get agape?
Well, I know for me, I can't answer that universally, but I know that for me, agape started when I stopped looking at things through a lens that was black and white. I looked at things through the lens of if they did me wrong or if they hurt me, that I felt like that justice needed to be rendered or that somebody had to pay. I think that agape starts with a position. That's why it says that they don't owe you anything. You're not expecting anything. So therefore you cannot want justice. You can't want to have that, that recompense for whatever they did. It means that it needs to be washed away and never settled in most accounts. And when I feel that agape is the most appropriate, there's a lot of people that just don't have it. Maybe they weren't loved by their moms. Maybe they're really broken inside. They can't give you what they don't have. And so for those individuals, it's like, why do you want them to pay? They've already paid enough. Probably, and it wasn't even they didn't pay for their own stuff. They're paying because of stuff their mom, their dad did or didn't do, whatnot, something someone stole from them, their innocence. And now they're messed up. So they can't give you what they don't have. So for me, it was divorcing myself from this ideal about justice and for things to be fair and equal. So I gave up that right. And I remember the first time it happened to me where I really expressed agape. A lot of the things I've learned through a working environment. So this was a staff who became like a spiritual daughter to me. People used to even say, "Oh, is that your sister?" Because I looked young at that time. And they would think that maybe she'd be like, "No, she's old enough to be my mom." And then eventually people started saying, "Oh, is that your but they'd say still sister or whatever, usually hardly ever mom. But that's what I called her. I would say daughter. She turned on me and did something that was very hurtful. And it was unexpected because I thought that I had trusted her at that level. She was in my house. She was in my inner sanctum. And so when you feel that sense of betrayal, but I remember after it was all said and done, I wanted really justice over that. I'm sorry. Because I felt like what she did, knowing who I was to her and what I did for her, I just felt like, that was like the kiss of Judas, let me kiss you while I stab you with the knife. And I did. But then I remember one day I was just, reflecting, and I came to the notion of, I'm just going to let it go. I don't want any justice. I'm going to let it go. And she was still doing stuff at that point. This is what made me so upset. I could have let it go if she would just stop, but she was still doing stuff. And I remember saying, I just let that go. Some things you need to sow as a seed, meaning you let them go and you let the one that's greater than you deal with the circumstances and the situations that occur afterwards. Some things you need to sow so that off of that pain, you can reap a harvest. Meaning, if you're not putting a demand for your justice, for your fairness, or your this equity that you think that you're due, and you just let it go. I just think that, God has a way of making things come out right. Because I think he's already worked them together for your good before they ever even happen. And so, I just think that that's the starting point. And I think I realized that, and I realized it wasn't as hard as I thought. Once in that very moment that I decided, I don't want any justice. It's okay. I let it go. It was like there was something that freed me. And then inside, I began to feel, not afraid anymore, not pensive about loving her still. Now, I'm gonna turn and I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna now jump to another aspect. This is another thing that I want people to learn that will help them to learn agape. When somebody hurt me, say we had been together for years, you were a good friend of mine, and then you did something that was just very destructive, hurt me to no end. Usually I would curse the day I met you. Anything that happened with you, it's like a husband and a wife. She cheats on him. He thinks everything that they did in the past was a lie. Or she thinks everything he said those past months or whatever was a lie. It's not a lie. I stopped doing that, and I started to embrace and still honor and still cherish the times that I had with that person before whatever incident occurred. And I still love those times that we had that I could remember and reflect on. I stopped feeling upset and throwing everything away. Those times were genuine. Those times were good. They were genuine because they made me feel good. They made me happy. I enjoyed them. So why do I need to throw them away just because the person hurt me later? I stopped doing that. And that gave me the opportunity to make room in my heart to see people for where they are. I think most of the time people do the best that they can. They really are. Your parents are doing the best that they can. They just might not have it. Some of these people that hurt you, hurt people. We all know this, but this is what it looks like. They betray you. This is what it looks like. They hurt your feelings. They do something that's so underhanded that you would never see it coming. And so I think that agape also starts with the notion of being able to forgive, being able to hold harmless.
So I have a question. Well, not more so a question. Some of what I'm getting from the explanation and the clear message, now that you've dissected agape a little deeper, in order to get to agape love, right? I believe you have to be able to deal with your own traumas in order to be able to understand that other people have traumas that they might not have dealt with. And you need to be able to see past them and potentially assist them as much as you can in order for them to see the bigger picture, as far as they now can potentially love unconditionally.
I'm loving what you're saying.
And you now understanding that because you've dealt with whatever traumas you've had, and potentially even letting them know your traumas. Now you'll have a mutual understanding and boundaries that may not be crossed by one another, understanding each other's traumas. Now that will allow you to move forward with agape love.
Well, one of the things that I like to do, I love your statement, Jeff, and I say yes to that. But one of the things I try to do is to push people from not remaining who they are currently. I believe that a lot of stuff happens because people are afraid to have the conversations. They're afraid to set boundaries. They're afraid to speak up when they see things beginning to be, to go left. And they want someone else to be responsible for that. Really, I'm saying you need to be responsible for it. They're your boundaries. They're your idiosyncrasies. And I would prefer, let's teach people how to mature. Teach them how to mature in their skill sets, their relational skill sets, so that they learn how to communicate what's important to them, that they learn how to hear or to understand where other people are. There's a lot to be said for your ability, your emotional intelligence, for you to read the room, for you to understand where people are. Learn to have the conversations that matter. You know what I'm saying? Like talking to people, talking about, did you see so-and-so on TV? Bump that mess. Let's talk about where your mind is and how did you get where you are. Let's talk about what do you think? What are you thinking about? What's your focus for the month? These are asking questions like profound. What are some of the things that you wish that you could undo if you had the opportunity? I love having conversations with people where you just throw stuff up in the air and you just talk. You cannot leave there the same. You learn something about that individual. You learn something about a way of seeing things that you'd never considered before, But those are the conversations I want to have. I want to know what happened to you. Why are you hurting? What's hurting you? And I think instead in society, we take everything so personal and everything's always about us, but it's really not. It's about where the person is. If you see me jacked up, I'll guarantee you, 9.5 times out of 10 has nothing to do with you. Find out why I'm acting jacked up. So then that's where the message can really begin. And that's where the healing and the forward movement can happen. And that's where relationships are really forged. They're forged in those intimate arenas where souls begin to touch because they've forgotten their clothes, and souls begin to touch because they've forgotten their clothes. So we're no longer afraid. We're naked. And we're able to really see each other as we really are. And then with that comes a deeper understanding. And with the deeper understanding comes a deeper ability to love. And
I
with
hope you guys were able to get some takeaways from this episode about Agape Love on Hollow Hearts 101. This is the beginning of an 8-part series where we talk about the different aspects of love. This week was Agape Love. If you learned anything, gained some insight, please let us know in the comment section. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and let Dr. Jacquie know on Facebook and Instagram how much you're enjoying this new podcast. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for us once again next week, Wednesdays at 7 p.m.